Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Today's episode is one for me that is very meaningful. I'm going to introduce you to my lovely friend, Billie Whitehouse, read her bio, and then I'm going to explain a little more about what she means to me. Billie Whitehouse is the CEO, designer, and director of Wearable X. Billie specializes in the unique combination of hardware, software, and apparel for wearable technology products. Known for her development of Nadi X, state-of-the-art technology to optimize your yoga, Billie is invigorating the fashion industry and transforming it into a business focused on improving the quality of our lives. Billie is an aesthetic specialist with a naturally inquisitive nature towards technology and innovation. As a garment engineer, she strongly believes people should not have to look like the technology that they've grown to love and depend on. Her designs are sharp, experimental, naturally confident, and subtly feminine in appearance, integrated with the latest technology. In 2021, Billie and Wearable X were featured in the Venice Biennale and Musée de l'Homme Limits of Humanity exhibition in Paris. Business Insider named Billie as one of the 30 most important women under 30 in tech, and she was named in the 100 most creative people in business by Fast Company. A recent highlight was winning the Fashion Group International Design Technology Award and being named one of the most innovative companies in fitness by Fast Company. In 2016, she was the winner of the Wearable Award in Paris at the Showroom Privé, as well as being featured on The Jimmy Fallon Show. Forbes compared Billie to Steve Jobs and Jerry Seinfeld because of an anthropological look at human-centric design with humor. Billie is also a renowned keynote speaker with presentations stretching from the New Yorker Tech Fest, Fortune's Elevate, Wired Retail UK, Fashion Futures 2021, Cannes Lion 2015-2016, Condé Nast Digital Russia 2016, India Fashion Forum 2016, and many more. But more than just Billie's work accolades, Billie is a beacon. She's a person that shows us where we're headed, a light that summons us closer. She is ahead of the pack. She is intentional. She is fun with a singular sense of humor. Billie and I have weathered startups, friendships, loss, lots of mess, and lots of joy. And I'm so honored to have you here today and to have you share your story. Welcome, Billie, to Too Much.
Thank you. You almost brought me to tears already. We're probably going to get there at some point.
I'm crying too. I just love you so much, and you just have so much to share across so many categories. And so thank you for gracing us with that.
No, it's an honor to be here. Honestly, I think sharing our conversations more broadly, even from the dancing together via Zoom during the pandemic,
Oh, so fun.
it was so fun, even in a wild time. But yeah, I think hopefully we have a lot to share.
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning in your own words.
I do think that looking into the future comes with its own reward and sometimes its own risk. I've probably lived at the intersection of future looking design for the last 15 years. And that really has leaned on technology for a long time. It's at this intersection of wellness and technology. And I think that's ironic for everything I've been through of late, in that you can't actually optimize your way out of not getting sick, even though we like to. I think there's a delightful universal humor and irony to what I've been through, in that I really do love health and fitness, and I really do love that feeling of endorphins from a run or from yoga. And I sometimes do genuinely cry at sunlight hitting a piece of leaf on a tree.
No, Billie's unbelievable. We were in Australia together. She's like, "Do you want to go run at the beach at like 7 a.m.?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I am good." And every day she'd be out there running on the beach.
It just makes me feel so good. And I mean, and each to their own, right? Like, I actually think it's beautiful that you know yourself so well that you don't want to do that. And that you're like, oh no, that's not how I want to spend my time. Whereas for me, that is exactly how I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
So yes, the irony that I then got very ill in 2023, while being pregnant it's baffling to me still. And you can't help but look into your own habits and see, is this something that I did? Is this something that I could have prevented in some way, shape, or form? And I really hope anyone who's been through anything similar to me, A, does that self-reflection because I think it's healthy, but also knows that deep down this isn't your fault.
Yeah.
And if you do become unwell.
I'm reading this book about power, and it leans on the genderized masculine feminine power. And one of the things I think is interesting is that culturally women are conditioned to look inward. So when something happens, the automatic response is to say, well, what did I do wrong? Versus it's just how we're conditioned. And so that reflection is important, but there is a balance here of like, you didn't do anything wrong. You don't have to automatically blame yourself or try and revise history. There's things that happen that are just flukes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to accept that, as I'm sure, like you, being an entrepreneur, we like to control the narrative and we like to have this feeling of, okay, what is the right perspective or story that I'm trying to share here? What are my learnings that I'm trying to share here? Letting go of controlling that narrative has been really hard because there's no real way to get to the learnings when you're really in it. And
Yeah.
when you're truly suffering, trying to find those learnings or fight for those learnings, honestly, I think might have made it harder at points. But allowing yourself to just be in that moment and whatever that moment is, whether it's good or bad or suffering or not trying to extract the meaning from it straight away actually felt really important, although difficult for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to sit in the thick of the mud.
Yeah. And when that mud is chemotherapy, holy hell, that is hard.
So let's go back to 2023. Can you walk us through how you first found out you had cancer and the tension that you were living in between what you thought was a very happy moment to having a very devastating, life-changing reality?
Yeah. And I probably will cry.
Okay.
I'm still
We love
processing a lot.
we cry on the I cry this pod. That's the marker of this podcast. We are a safe space. I cry all the time. I'll just be talking to someone and I'm moved. It's totally fair game. And if we need to pause, we'll pause. Take your time.
Thank you. So yes, I'll track back to 2022. I had been experiencing some pain, and it felt unusual. It didn't feel like normal behavior for my body to be in this kind of pain. And so at first I thought maybe it's just because I'd recently gone off an IUD and my body's just readjusting and I'm figuring out what this new state of normal means. And so I went through quite a series of painful months. I didn't ignore it. I was certainly paying attention to it. But when it didn't get better, I addressed it with a gastroenterologist who very much told me that I had gas, of which I had responded to, well, that's never happened like this before. And he said I was too young to get a colonoscopy and that I should check in with him again in a couple of months. And in those couple of months later, I then found out I was pregnant. And so every doctor that I then met from that moment on kept telling me that pain was related to the pregnancy. And I wasn't certain of this, and I certainly wasn't necessarily convinced that was the truth. But I did go and meet with additional gastroenterologists. I did tell them that the pain had continued. They kept recommending the same things, which was just fiber supplements at the time. And the constipation got worse, the pain got worse. And then bizarrely, it stopped. It was a month that December is always a very busy period for everybody. And it was a month that I was running around a lot. I was going to San Francisco for work. We were hosting events. We were seeing family in Colorado. And through that month, I felt okay. And like not having normal digestion by any stretch. But I was like, okay, maybe this is okay. Maybe I'm going to be fine. And then January 3rd came around and it was such excruciating pain that I knew I had to go to the hospital. Maybe I would not have gone as quickly if I wasn't pregnant. And so I'm grateful for that particular message that I received. In going to the hospital, they also sent me home after they said, you've probably got a bug, you'll be fine. And they sent me home a week later when I still hadn't been to the bathroom. For this point, it had been about 6 weeks. And I was in excruciating pain on the bathroom floor. And I told my partner, I think you have to take me to hospital again. I don't know what I can do. I had, by the way, seen other doctors in the gynecological space multiple times throughout this period because I was pregnant, and I was about 21 weeks pregnant at this point. And then when I went to the hospital, they wouldn't let me leave. They basically said, we need to discover what's wrong before we would let you go again. And they finally, after 5 days of being in hospital, DT scan. And I was in excruciating pain at this point. And then they discovered that there was a tumor blocking my transverse colon. They performed emergency surgery the next day. And the wild timing of it all was that my major sort of business partner also fired about 3,000 people the exact hour that I got chopped open on that Friday. I think it was the 21st of January of 2023. And I woke up the next day drafting a text being like, there's my come back to work plan. I'm going to need some time off. These people will take over my projects. And the response to the text message was, we're all gone. So talk about a message from the universe that things have to change.
Everything just upended overnight. So once they took you in emergency surgery, you get the results back. How do you even begin to process that?
So you don't get the results back immediately. In fact, they biopsy everything. They remove the tumor. I woke up with a stoma, which in itself is an emotional journey to go through. And the baby was still alive. And the focus over those next few days while you're still in hospital was very much like, can I and this baby survive? And can we get through this next phase? They didn't give me the results for 2 weeks, but the baby didn't make it past a week. So there was the journey of having to go through the D&C at that point after having had major abdominal surgery. And I don't know if you've ever been in hospital or if your listeners have been in hospital, but you really don't sleep a lot. So they come in and wake you up multiple times during the night. So the physical exhaustion is just excruciating. And the process to then have to say goodbye to this baby that we were so excited about after finding out that there's a huge tumor, not knowing 100% if it's cancer or not, but them giving us an indication that's reasonably likely. Yeah, the processing took a really long time.
It's really hard.
I am grateful to our baby for saving my life. And I believe he did.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. And he lived a valiant life in that regard.
And we keep trying to live.
These days, amidst the daily onslaught of the world that we live in and the grief that we all carry and our own individual griefs, collective grief, is that we just have to keep living and find the thread that makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely. And sometimes that can be as simple as that beautiful coffee you have in the morning after you've been on a morning walk in the sun. At least while that takes a while to find exactly how that's going to be in your new phase of life after a diagnosis. Yeah, I think you can't expect to have the answers to everything immediately. It's okay to just be in a very weird place for a little while. And then, at least for me, I felt this real calling, and it was partially after having a conversation with you, where I felt like it was more important to share my journey than it was to protect my narrative, per se. And that if I can impact one person's life and encourage one person to have a colonoscopy and fight for that colonoscopy that I didn't in the October before this all happened, that feels more important now than it really did previously.
I tell everyone I know now to get a colonoscopy. I just had my second one. And it's one of the most important things we can do is be proactive in our health. Whatever the blueprints, the health blueprints were for our parents' generation, they've expired. We're living with a lot of other factors now, our generation. So we can't be reliant on an outdated system, really have to advocate for ourselves. So how do we make sure that everyone takes care of themselves in the best way they know how to make sure that they get ahead of it versus behind it?
For sure. The statistics around the amount of colon cancer in people under the age of 50 have more than doubled in the last 10 years. So you're spot on in saying that these aren't the same parameters that our parents grew up in. It's not just the food we're eating, and it's not just the lifestyles we're living. And we certainly acknowledge that we're a more sedentary lifestyle now. It's so many factors, and we don't know what they are. At least, and this is probably controversial, but at least the one thing that all of my doctors, and I say all of them, but I've probably had 50 different people consult on my case, and they all agree that
Right.
reducing the
Right.
amount of processed meat and red meat, especially meat that's been barbecued, is the one thing that each one of them agrees on.
There's a lot of food related aspects here, which when processed food is cheaper, there's a lot of factors into why people are eating that way. And so it's very challenging to navigate in terms of there's no way to live a perfect existence to defend against all factors. So it's just being as conscious as you can be with whatever your circumstances are. So you get the results back, you find out it's colon cancer. Walk me through your emotional state or how you tried to even navigate because you were working at the time. Like, how do you even begin that tightrope of trying to figure out how to walk into this new normal when you also have all these other demands on you?
Yeah. So I think the actual results came in the day before my birthday, February 7th. And this is standard procedure in New York. They share the results with you via email or via the portal before they actually have a conversation with the doctor. And so every single patient that I know, even though we know we shouldn't, goes straight to Dr. Google and is like, what does this all mean? Which of course sends you down a, pretty tumultuous spiral. And it's a super hard time. I think my partner, I remember him being out the hour I got the email and him coming home and just seeing me in an absolute mess on the kitchen counter, not coping at all. And it's interesting the things that were really hard to deal with at that time. I actually found it really hard to communicate with people at that time. And I really wanted to go into a healing cocoon of just focus on my health. All that matters is my experience and actually surviving this. I found the communication with broader family and broader friends really challenging. And it's part of the reason I actually didn't go more public early on is I truly didn't think I could cope with that additional communication, which it might sound strange because you do certainly want to feel the love from everybody. And I do love this notion of community as part of the healing process. But I felt so overwhelmed. I felt so overwhelmed with having that same conversation again and again. And I felt so overwhelmed with unsolicited advice, which is inevitable. And in addition to that, it's also the advice that says, oh, well, my friend had that, they died. And
Right.
so I think hopefully my current status will be around helping people with how to communicate with someone who's gone through cancer. And that's what I hope I can bring to this space, at least at the moment. I'm not 100% there yet. And I'll step back to what happened post that diagnosis.
Before we do
We
that, I just want to talk about this is one of the challenging things we saw in even our friend group. There were people that didn't have the tools to speak to you and reach out to you. And everyone's got to meet people where they're at. I understand that. But what was hard for me to witness as well was people that I expected more of. I expected them to reach out and they didn't because I don't believe they know how to. I don't believe they have the language. I don't believe they have the tools. I think they were probably very afraid of saying something wrong. And like you might say something wrong and showing up for your friend that's sick. And you have to be okay with that and just learn through that and be okay if your friend says that's actually not helpful. Can you give us some ideas of what really wasn't helpful and then the type of support that really made you feel seen and heard?
I definitely have some thoughts on this. And so thank you for digging a little deeper into it. The first one is, yeah, and this is such a human experience that I do as well, that when someone's having a tough time, you want to ask them to look at the positive. And that we're all guilty of this. When it's cancer, it's really hard to say, oh, let's just flip the switch and oh yeah, here's the silver lining. That to me was the most frustrating expression that I got from people was either them telling me to stay positive, B, them insisting that, oh, at least you're alive, or at least it's not this, or at least it's that. I certainly heard, well, at least it's bowel cancer. Like, what?
What?
No. It's sort of strange. I know that people don't know how to respond, and it's certainly, I try and come from that place of empathy as well. But in that moment, you know, being in your face about communicating with someone. So when someone says that, hey, I'm really struggling to communicate right now, if insisting that they communicate with you is probably going to be a bit tough on them. Telling them what you think they should do, or like giving them that unsolicited advice of like, find the positive or see what you can control, or it doesn't really work in that moment.
Yeah.
And so the big takeaways with allow someone to be exactly where they're at. They're having a shit time. They really need to cry. If their family is not being supportive and they just want to vent, just let it happen. Don't ask them to be positive. Don't ask them to calm down. Let them rant, because my God, they're going through it.
If it makes the person uncomfortable, that's the job of the person on the other side, is to sit in your discomfort, because you're far more uncomfortable than that person is. And we're not really trained to sit with uncomfortable emotions. And so it is the process of being there for a friend that is sick is a process of putting yourself to the side and just being incredibly present.
Oh, certainly. I had a friend who knew who was also sick, and I'm very aware of the things that I did for her that might not have felt good now, having been on the other side. And whether it's something simple as asking people, have you changed your diet? What people don't realize in saying a comment like that is that insinuates that they were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And just saying like, hey, can I support you with anything healthy that you might be interested in trying, is a much more open-ended way of asking that same question. One of the greatest tools that my friends all contributed to was sending me a delivery service of organic food after a most recent surgery. And that honestly was game changing, because neither my partner or I had energy to do anything after that surgery. After you've been in hospital for a week and eating honestly terrible food, that it's in itself was such a gift. So rather than saying like, have you changed your diet, saying things like, hey, can we support you with a meal service? And
Yeah.
what sort of food are you interested in? I certainly know my healing journey has been about food, but my friend, she just really wanted comfort food. And that was absolutely her choice. And for someone saying that she should change her diet, that would be honestly offensive.
Do you think it became clear who had the capacity to hold space for you versus who didn't? That's the old trope, right? Is that when you go through really challenging things, you realize who your people are. And I just wanted to know how true that was for you.
Almost certainly. I've actually had a friend tell me that I was a bad friend during that
Yeah.
time. And look, that's fair. I was a bad friend, and I had no other way I could be at that point. While I don't necessarily think that summarizes everything that's happened in that friendship, literally didn't. I haven't had capacity to do much more than survive for the
Yeah.
last few years. And so asking that that person does more than that is actually too much, especially when they're going through cancer. So quite literally just being there so you ensure that they survive. That's the cancer patient's number one job, is focus on how they can survive. If you as a friend can support them through that, you're not trying to make them wrong. You're not trying to suck up all their energy. You're certainly not disappearing either, because this is a hard one, but it's a true one too. The friends who did genuinely disappear, I hate to say it, but I've had that thought that they just don't really care if I die. And I realize that it's actually about them not having the tools and the ability to have those really hard conversations and sit in that discomfort. But the reality of what you're feeling at that point when you're so alone and you're so sick, you sort of can't help but have those dark thoughts.
Of course. Yeah. Also, just it's changing the expectation and the framework of you can reach out, but there's nothing you're expecting on the other side. You're just letting them know you care. But it's still a challenging thing. I don't think I'm perfect at it. I think I've made mistakes along the way too, and things I've said, and I've reflected on certain moments. And it's just one of those things where you have to try and do better each and every time. And as a friend, the goal is you might say the wrong thing and you really just have to be okay with that and move through that. And that is really hard for people to do. That if you haven't been through it, it's a learning curve. It's new territory. And so being gentle with yourself as a friend to your friend is important.
Very much. And even just asking them, like, hey, how can I show up for you right now? It is those open-ended questions from friends of how can we support you right now? How can we show up for you right now? And coming up with ideas for them rather than it's like a ChatGPT prompt. If you
Yeah.
have an ABC optionality, the response is going to be a lot better. So would you like a cup of tea, B, someone to vent to, C, a meal service, D, shoulder to cry on? That's going to be a lot easier for someone who's dealing with a lot to be able to respond to. And they can quite literally just write back option A and B, please.
Yeah.
And that, because the open-ended question of how can I be there for you, honestly, most of the time I probably didn't respond to them because I just didn't have the energy. I didn't have the energy to think of what I needed. And half the time we didn't know. And I know that's really hard for a group of friends who really want to support as well. But it is, as you say, new territory for everybody. And my biggest takeaways that I'm so grateful for is quite literally the friends who, did sometimes just show up, said, hey, I'm in the city. Hey, can we have a cup of tea? Or like, hey, I know you can't leave the house right now, which is, this wild part of why it feels so lonely is that you're immunocompromised when you're on chemotherapy. We've just got out the back of the pandemic. So you're definitely alienated. You're not really going to parties because you have no energy. So the friends who do just show up and say, like, I'm at the door, I've got a basket of something, or here's a cup of tea, whatever it is. And that really does help, because the thinking process of what we might need at that time was just too hard.
Thank you for walking us through that. I think that will be very helpful for a lot of people. I want to go back now to you receiving your diagnosis and what transpires next.
Yeah. So we got the results, and they indicated that it was cancer and that it was an aggressive cancer. I'm not going to disclose the stage just because I think it is a little too sensitive sometimes. The process then is you meet with another 15 different doctors and you get a various amount of opinions about what the course of action should be. And that course of action looks different at different hospitals. And so ultimately you have to make the choices about what's right for you and where you're at. And that means making choices about your fertility as well, because chemo really does impact everything. I still have a bald patch, by the way. It's probably why I like hats even more. And then I went through a fertility treatment because I was at that stage of being very excited about having a baby. And this is quite a funny story now, but after doing 10 days of hormones, because they want to do a condensed version when you're about to start chemo treatment, I then had the opportunity to go to the White House to a colon cancer event to learn and hear from some of the most interesting researchers, from survivors, from family members, which when you're 10 days worth of hormones are at that point, and you've taken a 5-hour train ride to DC and you haven't eaten any food because you have an ostomy and you don't want to have to use the bathroom on the train. And then you get to the White House and they say, oh, actually, you need to take a different entrance because you're a foreign national. Oh, and by the way, you have to have an escort to go to the bathroom with you. You finally use the bathroom after 5 hours. You get into this amazing space and hear these amazing presentations that were truly inspiring and informative. But I was in tears, wailing at the back of this beautiful conference. And this was organized by the Biden administration. They have a cancer moonshot event for every different cancer. And this is to both raise money and awareness for particular research in certain areas. This particular event was highly emotional. And I did have some friends who were survivors who were part of the panels and the presentation. I then was so very thirsty and so very hungry because I hadn't eaten all day that I did another dash to the bathroom to hopefully fill up my water bottle from the tap because I hadn't seen any water available. And I think it's because I missed the sort of beverage section and the food section earlier in the day. And I get to the bathroom and I realize that the zip on my very corporate dress was just like a little bit too high. Well, it was a zip that started as a pencil skirt, started from the bottom, went all the way back up the top. So I've been running around the White House with, basically my knickers showing at a colorectal cancer event, having not eaten anything and being hopped up on hormones. I remember texting my partner at the end of the day when I was getting the train back, just going like, please get the trigger shot ready. I'm like, just getting on the train. Let's do this. But also, I really need food. Like, please get me some food. And I remember that first mouthful when I got home. I think it was midnight, and I was giving myself the trigger shot and having a mouthful of food was just the most joyous thing I'd ever had in the world. But I think I cried the whole way up and the whole way back. And still, I'm so grateful for having that experience, for seeing the work that is being done in this country to try and support this. I think there's some questions about whether that research is still being funded right now.
I think there's a lot of questions about what is actually, if any, research is being funded, and if so, what that is. It's definitely a scary time. So then you go through chemo, which was not a fun process, very fatiguing. How long was your chemo again?
My chemo was about 5.5 months. I mean, this is for everyone to know that part of the reason you're so sort of bound to one area is because you go in every 2 weeks. And for me, I stayed connected to the pump. I still have a port, by the way, it's right here. You stay connected to the pump and then you disconnect. My partner would disconnect the pump and you would slowly build back your strength over that 2-week period before you then have tests again and then start chemo for another every 2 weeks. That you do over this 5.5 months. You do additional scans, additional blood work during that time, but you're exhausted, absolutely exhausted all the time. And I was managing to do some work during that period, and I did have the right delegation with some team members to continue. The reality is you're not at the same capacity as normal, and you can't really be expected to be at that capacity. I do think that communicating really clearly with your team and with your board, if you have a board, of just what you're capable of at that time is really important. The part that I wasn't transparent about, and I think everyone is within their right to make those decisions, was I didn't feel comfortable sharing what the diagnosis was or what the treatment was. And that was very much because I felt I was capable of the amount that I thought was necessary at that time. And we had slowed down on our projects, external facing projects, as I mentioned. And we managed to sort of truck through. In hindsight, could I have told the board and would it have changed anyone's opinion? I don't know. But there is this like deep unknowing fear of what are people going to think now that they know that I've been sick or I've had cancer.
What is it that made you want to start telling your story now?
The first one really was, I felt finally I had the capacity to communicate with a broader network of friends and family. I hadn't felt like I'd had that energy up until that point. The second part was the notion of this reaching someone beyond me felt more important once I had the energy to do it. And so the hoping that, this message that you can advocate for yourself to get that colonoscopy or to find out more or do additional blood work, which, by the way, I had more blood work than anyone during that time because I was pregnant, and none of that indicated that I was necessarily a candidate for colon cancer.
So post chemo, you went into remission.
I did.
We had talked about this a bit, which was remission being this good thing, but you're holding your breath the whole time.
I actually think remission might have been harder than chemo itself. And I say that because everyone keeps saying, but you're good now, right? And, oh, but you're better now. Or you're through chemo. Well done. Like, congratulations. But my mental health really felt like it took a turn at about the 6-month mark, where everyone kept telling you, like, you're good, you're healthy, you look amazing. And of course you're skinny because during chemo, it eats away at your muscle mass. And that's probably another one that you definitely don't need to tell someone who's going through chemo, you look amazing. I know everyone's trying to find a compliment, but it's a hard pill to swallow when you really are feeling emaciated. So the mental health of someone who's just been through a treatment after they've been through that like initial high of feeling complete and done is its own challenge. And honestly, I think everyone expecting you to be normal felt way harder than everyone being there to support you through chemo. I think there is no normal again following this, and there is no going back to the way things were following this. You have to make adjustments to your life, I believe. And hopefully that all means adjustments for the better. Some of it is simple adjustments. You use particular shampoo and conditioner because, believe it or not, chemo really affected my scalp. And it is wild what the repercussions on your skin can be following something like that. The zoom out of, what was really tough was it didn't feel like the support network was there once you're in remission. It feels like everyone goes back into their normal life and they expect you to go back into it too. And I think that was really challenging for me.
It's like you're in survival mode and then you get into remission and now having to process everything. Everything changes, right? Your body's different. Your understanding of the world is different. And my friend was saying this, who lost everything in the fires in Los Angeles in January, was that she's like, the whole city's moved on and I'm still just putting the pieces back together. And everyone thinks I should be over this by now. But the reality is that the mourning and the grief period, there is no set time limit on how long we're allowed to grieve. Despite it being good news, you don't know if it's good news until a certain amount of time has passed when it comes to cancer. So you're taking it day by day still until you pass that threshold.
And then every time there is a scan, which if someone's had a serious cancer, you'll have scans every 3 months or every 6 months. Everyone will get in touch that one moment every 3 months, and they'll want the news but they only really want the good news. And so it's really hard to get to that point where you're like, this doesn't feel good. I don't feel right. Like I'm really struggling with trying to get back to a normal life now. It's certainly a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah. During the toughest days, where did you find your resolve?
It's a great question. It varied. And I'm that sort of person. I think I do need variety in how I soothe myself. Some days I would just take a walk to Elizabeth Street Garden in New York City and sit there with my journal and have a coffee or a matcha latte or whatever it was and really just enjoy the park. That was sort of like easy step one. Okay, I know that gives me a little bit of a buzz. That's great. I think we all know these tools of using a gratitude journal. It is important. I've actually found that rereading them sometimes helps me process my grief for what I was going through in the past. So I have had that practice over the last year or so of reading my, dare I say it, cancer journals. It sometimes does, however, trigger things, of course, and hopefully, we can learn from those triggers of, okay, I don't want to respond this way, or I don't want to be in that environment. How do I ensure that this can shift in a way that is supportive to me in my healing journey? Other times it was just bawling my eyes out, and I did that even on Sunday, and I needed to just let it out. Have those days. Allow yourself to have those days. Don't try and make them all positive. Just let yourself have that moment. I had a very clear plan when I was having my second surgery, which was the reversal. And the plan was I was going to watch Harry Potter from start to finish while I was in hospital for pure distraction, not
Yeah.
for processing, not for anything. And that honestly really helped. Just allowing myself that absolute indulgence, that nothing else mattered. Mark, my partner, would look after communication with everyone, and I was just going to indulge in just that absolute delight of fantasy.
I will say, Billie has a fantastic partner who has been with her every step of the way and is very good at making life fun and varietal.
I mean, sense of humor through this was crucial. Thank God for him. I mean, I cannot be more grateful. He has been an absolute rock for me, and did sleep in a cot under his French trench coat for many, many nights. Eventually he got smart and brought his own blow-up mattress. So it was very clever. But he would play me guitar and he would, make me laugh. He'd even encourage me to sing along when at that point in time you've had your lungs powered by a machine. So you can't even really breathe properly. But singing was actually an amazing tool to start building up my lung strength again. Yeah. He's creative in that way. He would think of things that would just help me even from the hospital bed all the way through. And then, bless him, I actually thought this was a brilliant idea. He made me a kimono, so a kimono that I would wear to chemo. And he built a calendar that was all these fabulous memories that we have of our relationship. And he highlighted my chemo dates and crossed them off. And we had that very clear plan of like, this is what we're doing for the 6 months. This is when the next surgery is. And this is the holiday that we're going to have booked at the end of it, which I went ahead and booked. And that having that thing to look forward to was just honestly essential.
You both have such a love of travel, and I appreciate us through all of this. You didn't stop doing the things you loved, and you followed your intuition on what felt right for you at the right time. You both have such a deep zest for life, like you always have the whole time I've known you. And as much as I think you think that might have shifted while you were sick, for my perception is it never changed.
Thank you. It's hard to find the zest when you're exhausted all the time, but you try your best to find moments, whether it's a walk in the park or a coffee with a friend. Honestly, the sort of things that you crease yourself with laughter at there. And that was I asked to everyone was send me memes that make you laugh. Please, I wanted that to be flooding my inbox of every variety. Some people were better at it than others. I did have a German friend tell me, I'm really sorry, but I'm not funny. And I did think that was hilarious. And it's fine. He tried to send me some memes and they were pretty entertaining. They were very him. And that was all I really wanted was to feel like I was in people's thoughts, but that they were thinking of me with a sense of humor rather than with me being sick.
Billie, I just want to thank you so much for showing us all of yourself during this time and sharing your story finally, because as a friend, you have so much wisdom to share, and there's a permission you're giving by showing up as your whole self in this moment and in this experience. And so I just want to thank you for being so candid about the highs and the lows.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing the space for people like me to do that. I do think this is very healing. I do think the sharing has felt good, even if absolutely terrifying. And I think you even deemed it the vulnerability hangover. I definitely experienced that. I was sort of dumbfoundedly flat afterwards, and then have come back to life. And receiving a message from an Australian friend that because I shared my story, they encouraged their partner to go and get this colonoscopy, and they found up to 10 precancerous polyps, and that their doctor told them that his wife saved his life. That to me that's why we should be open and vulnerable to ensure that people can learn from our lessons
and save their own lives. Because that's exactly right, is that the earlier you detect it, the more opportunity you have to have control over your own life and your experience. I love you so much. Where can people find you and learn about you and follow all things Billie?
Yeah, and mostly being as transparent as I can on my own Instagram, which is at Billie W House. If you're interested in wearable technology, that's at Wearable X. But my website's just billiewhitehouse.com.
Go find her, go support her, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.